Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the night, and with me, as usual, is Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Hola.
Ooh, 2 weeks in a row with Jen.
So, yes, 2 weeks in a row. I'm sorry, guys.
The listeners can't see all the confetti and streamers dropping from the ceiling right now.
That just went everywhere.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Me and Henno have, noisemakers and hats and everything. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the baubles and the hanging from the beard, Brian. You know,
Listen,
very festive.
I'm nothing if not festive. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely what people think of when they think of festive. I'm not helping you put that tree up.
I don't know why, but that made me think of there's a trend, and I don't even know if we would really call it a trend, but a trend right now of manscaping bikinis.
Oh, that, yeah. Okay.
On top. Yes, manscaping bikini tops on themselves.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yes, making a bikini bra out of your chest hair.
Yeah.
And so, yes, speaking of festive hair.
So, yeah, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To each his own.
Now,
not, right?
I'll say this. If you're going to do it, you got to go whole hog here, no pun intended. And you got to do the Borat bathing suit. Then I'm like, okay, I don't want to see that, but that's impressive. But
that's a lot of shaving.
Yep.
Now that we've completely, I've derailed us, let's bring us back on track. And how are you guys doing? How was your week? I don't have to go first this time, so what do you guys do?
All right, I'll go.
Shampoo over this one.
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, if you listen to the last episode, I had a visitor for a few days. And we had a lot of fun. It was really really an emotional kind of high, and it was nice to have that stuff again, like and be in the moment, realizing that I'm feeling feelings, like happy, not just meh, and I went to therapy, before she came in and stuff, and it was really cool. I think I mentioned this last time. It was cool for the last 2 times that I've mentioned that I feel like I'm moving in a good way to both my therapist and my psychiatrist. So that was, that's always nice to have those feelings and stuff. So that's, definitely a good thing. But I did find myself going through, an emotional hangover because I was happier for a few days and then, less happy after she left. So it was, I definitely was going through, but again, those are the ones that, like you look at and go, this is normal. As much as I don't love normal, but I mean, it's like, this is an appropriate reaction. Like most people would feel like, oh, like even if it's somebody that hasn't seen like their mom in a while or their brother or whatever, and they come into town, you're like, oh, yeah. And then when they leave, you're like, oh, I'm not going to see him for 6 months or whatever, So I like the fact that I'm catching that stuff too. Like I'm recognizing like, oh, this isn't me being crazy or, overreacting. This is me having a normal reaction to a situation. So it was, even though there was an emotional hangover, it was nice that I recognized that it wasn't an inappropriate response.
Mm.
Yeah, you're being neurotypical.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no, you don't say normal,
right.
You say neurotypical. I found my little sticky note that I wrote neurotypical on.
Neurotypical.
Right on.
Neurotypical.
Yep.
And I'd like to take a moment, though, and point out the fact that, audience, you heard it here first. Brian said he was happy.
No, I said I was feeling. I said I was feeling happy.
He was feeling happy, not happy-ish, not sort of happy, not a little bit positive. He said flat out the word happy. And that's, I think, a milestone.
Yeah, it always is. And
she's really pushing it tonight.
I know, right?
Being happy.
Well, it's like I said, it's really nice to not only feel that way, but recognize I'm feeling that way. Yes. This will show you how in my head I get really easily, which is I realized that I was feeling happy, not, and seeing how in the moment that was, that I could kind of step out and go, wow, I'm feeling happy. But also in my head, I'm also analyzing like how happy, like, is this too happy? Do I need to pull it back? So hopefully that, that's the stuff, those little nuances are the things that are getting better, but I still notice them and it makes me laugh. And then it's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't go through this kind of stuff,
You're still going to be Brian.
Yeah.
Regardless of everything else. That's a part of you that's never going to change.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, that was about it. It's been, pretty pretty average week after that. It was just, whatever. And, honestly, I kind of got lazy the last few days. I think the being productive for like 3 weeks there really caught up to me. Finally, it's like, I'm done.
And the pendulum swings.
Right. But no, it's like, I'm at a point where I have phone calls to make again because, I thought I had things straightened out to get my eyes examined, but they called me the other day and said that they actually don't take my insurance. So, I'm going to have to call my insurance company and just be like, all right, where can I go? Cause I've called various places around here. Nobody seems to take it. So, help me out. And also the appointment I made with my psychiatrist the other day, I now have to reschedule because he didn't realize he was on vacation when he scheduled the appointment. Somehow it wasn't blocked in his, calendar. Yeah. He called me. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, I don't know what I was thinking, but blah, blah. I was like, that's no big deal. But it's still, staring at a couple of phone calls again. So it's like, well, let's see if I get them done on Monday or if it's, next Monday or whatever. But I think that's about it for me. So.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'll go next. I'll switch things up a little bit. My week's been kind of a bit of a roller coaster. I had a situation at work, and I hate it when this happens to me, but I got frustrated to tears. Hate it, but
right.
It's part of me, and I have to accept the goods and the bads and all of the bits and pieces, but thankfully it was in a reasonable way. I mean, what happened was somebody, one of the other supervisors, asked me to do, or told me, didn't ask, dictated something to me, to which I didn't feel comfortable with. So I said, let me speak to my direct supervisor and we'll take care of it. Mm. And he didn't like that. So we took it into the office where a supervisor of the next level stepped in and stated that I had to do what any supervisor asked me to do, and then that didn't go over well. And yeah, it was one of those circumstances where there's a lot of gray, not a lot of clear cut, and a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So I got very frustrated, which led to tears, as it always does with me when I get super frustrated and I don't feel I have an outlet where I can voice my feelings. It just automatically, my eyes water and stuff. So got myself together. I sat down and I'm like, all right, what am I going to do about this? So I ended up having a conversation with my supervisor's manager in a closed office about the situation. Then he gets fired.
Whoa.
Yeah. Come in the following day, and he's no longer with the company. Oh, I'm like, whoa, okay, so the person I just spoke to is no longer with the company. So I have a new person. So I'm like, you know what? Opportunity. So I take it upon myself, and the new gentleman was there, and I introduced myself, and I said, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Mm-hmm. He's like, absolutely. So we sat down and we started talking in a very professional manner. I explained my situation, how I'm getting confusing direction from a variety of different supervisors, and I need to understand what my role is and how it plays within the whole scheme of things. So he said, absolutely, 100% agree, and we're going to get you some standardized work, and we're going to get some org charts put together, and we're going to get things nice and mapped out. I said, that's perfect, and that works right to my strengths, and I use that as a nice entryway to describe to him some of my background in writing standard work and creating standardized processes and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it really turned into quite the positive experience. Is there still the confusion about supervisors? Who do I listen to? What can I do? Yes. But in the meantime, in a stopgap for that situation, I was told to, and this is good advice, I think, for everyone, is when someone asks you to do something that you're not 100% comfortable with, but you feel you need to do it anyways, do it, but send an email, copy the person that asked you to do it, copy your boss on it, and say, per our conversation, this is what I did per your direction. So that's documented. For anyone has any questions about why this happened, there we go. In a nutshell, everything is covered. So, and he told me, he's like, copy him on everything, which I'm like, perfect, I can handle that. Yeah, so I guess it was kind of a roller coaster. It was my first time crying at work at this new job, which sucks, always sucks. And you know, other people out there, I'm sure you guys can relate at some point. I always feel like I'm showing my butt to the world whenever I do it.
Yeah.
I just get so super embarrassed and nothing I can do about it. You just kind of, you're just there. So you just got to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But, other than that, everything else seems to be going pretty well. I'm getting prepped and the house ready for having a large party coming up in July. So we're looking at probably close to 50 to 75 people probably coming over.
Nice.
So I'm, yeah. So getting myself mentally and physically and everything prepared, the house prepared as well as myself prepared. Right. So I'm starting early and kind of making sure that I'm feeling comfortable with everything so that I can make sure that I can enjoy myself as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Just remember one thing if you need to, which is you're on your home turf. So if something starts bothering you, you're on your turf. This is your splat. Your splat. Yeah, your splat. Your space.
It is. Yeah, it is. And that I think is going to work to my advantage in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And it is family and friends, and most people will understand and know me well enough to know if I disappear for a few minutes that there's nothing wrong. It's just I need to disappear for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because hey, who doesn't, right? Right. Everybody needs a little break once in a while. So.
Yep.
But yeah. Everything else is going good, and that was my week. How about you, Hanno?
I had a very nice little weekend getaway.
Cool.
It was only to Boise, but it was just nice to get out of town and go eat some food I don't get to usually eat, and be completely okay with doing nothing. And not feeling guilty about it. And that was really awesome. And so that was a really great part of my week. And then as like Brian was already talking about, it's like there's always the pendulum swings. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it goes. It's like you get the bonus, and then you come back, and it's like, okay, now I got to catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, when it doesn't matter how late you stay up, all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's 1:00, and I got to work tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's like at the end of spring, like summer vacation when you're in school. It's like by the end of the summer, and you've been staying up till midnight, 1:00, and you're like, I got to go to bed because I got to be up at like 6. Like, oof, terrible.
But I did. I got to be in the big city. Whew.
Yep.
At least I get to go shopping and go to like the things that everyone just runs to the other side of town for. Mm-hmm. I have to drive 2 hours for.
Right. You're like, well, I'm here. I might as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I was smart and I didn't try to take it all on one day. I split it up amongst days.
Yep.
And at one point I was like, yeah, and I don't need to go to the mall. I'll take care of that when I get something else. When I was like, I can take care of that when I get home.
Yeah.
But that was great. But then I had this weird thing happen, and this will help us segue into our episode tonight, or our topic for tonight.
Yeah, we haven't started the episode
these three
yet.
interactions. Yeah, exactly. We haven't started yet. We're not even recording.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just wanted to say thank you again, Roxana, for coming on the show last week. It was really awesome. Yeah. And if you have not listened to last week's episode, I highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. But I first got I saw it was a phone call, and there was a voicemail from somebody I've known for decades. And this was while I was in Boise. And I'm like, I am not dealing with, I've gone out of town. This can wait. The problem with it was titled Farewell.
Oh my.
So dramatic.
Yeah, so you at least have to look at it.
I had to start looking at it. And it was just like, just drama. I was like, okay. And I quickly saw the transcript of the voicemail and blah, blah, blah. And I was I'm like, okay, this is just bizarre. And, I just waited, and I waited till today, and I finally read it, and it's just misunderstandings, and like, I didn't reply to an email a couple months ago that was sent to me about my sobriety birthday. And I really thought I had, but I hadn't. I hadn't said thank you or anything. And then it was like, and I've called twice, and I'm just like, I'm out of town. I mean, so now we have to have the big email. And I was just like,
we need to talk.
Yeah, seriously, really, we need to make statements of this sort of magnitude.
Yeah. Really feels like an I'm sorry should cover that, like, hey, sorry about that. And then that should be about it.
And that was it. I literally was a paragraph I said, because there was this idea. So this is somebody that I've known now for, like, honestly, it's been over 20 years. And, we are friends in a way where she was always there for me when I was struggling in life, whether it was with alcoholism or whatever it was, or just me being me. And we would get together like, every other month, have dinner. We're about 10 years apart in age. And it's just, we met through my work and became friends. And she was a very important person in my life. And then, I'd say, when I moved, things of course changed and we didn't communicate as much, but usually when I went home, I saw her. But about 3 years ago, she had she actually had a brain tumor. And had like they pulled like a baseball sized tumor out of her head.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, it was like I'd been to the day that it happened, we were supposed to meet. Or when it really hit the fan, we were supposed to meet, and all of a sudden she wasn't there. And I'm like, okay, what happened? Cause like literally we never missed dates with each other. We're not even, never late, nothing like that. And she had fallen, like, lost her balance to a point and was rushed to the hospital, and that's when they discovered everything.
Wow.
So where I'm going with that is, like, last year for my wedding, she wasn't able to come to the wedding, and she felt really bad about it and apologized. And so in this letter, it was this big thing about that I'm resentful that she didn't come to the wedding. I'm like, I'm not, and I'd said exactly what you said, Brian, which is like, I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding. I thought I'd sent you something I hadn't. Yeah. And I just asked for the same level of understanding that I had given her last year,
right.
And just like, it's no big deal. And so I was like, okay. And I felt good afterwards. I felt, okay, I responded, and it's honest, it's honest truth. And then I get to work, and I'm looking at this project that I wasn't involved with, but I did some work on it. And this lady comes out and starts asking me questions and started getting very agitated with my answers. And my answers are literally like, a contractor. I don't know. Some just very matter of fact. It was like, you're being awfully defensive. And I'm like, I am? About what? And then it was like,
no, it would have been great if you would have been like, am I?
and she started like walking away like I was threatening or something. And so I'm like, okay, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what is going on? So I started walking away and she said something to me and I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're being very aggressive. She lost it. She lost it, like completely lost it, because I turned it around on her.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is so weird. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you anymore. You're being very aggressive. You know? And this is my win for the week. Usually this stuff gets in my head because she's there like, what's your name? And I said, I'm Heno. I work for the HOA, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, I was just trying to answer some questions. She was this was a thing for her. And so I'm sure I'm going to hear about it tomorrow. Somehow someone's going to find out about it and talk to me about it. And that stuff usually gets in my head. And I'm just like, I was like, I'm so glad I was just answering some questions and she got weird, you know?
Right.
But I didn't, you know, I just laughed at it and I went, there's nothing to worry about, you know?
Right.
But it's an odd feeling to have somebody all of a sudden, like at one point she said, you don't need to yell at me. And I'm like, I just said it was a contractor. You know, like I'm like, what part of is that a yelling thing? I was just, you know, when I was like, this is going really weird. I need to leave now. Yeah. You know, like I feel like I'm being set up, like completely. Like I felt like I was being set up by someone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm okay. And so then lastly, and this will tie us into our topic tonight, I had a friend of mine send me a text last night and said, do you have a minute to talk? And I was like, absolutely. And so then there was a phone call and I picked up the phone. Hey, you know, how's it going? She's like, oh, not so well, you know, it's personal stuff and this and that. And then started talking about, my friend Jen does Suicide Hotline. And then she brought up Anthony Bourdain, and I was like, oh, I could tell she was very upset by it. And my whole Facebook feed has been nothing but just these accolades for the man. And, you know, he does an amazing show, but as, an alcoholic, I see a different side to him than maybe other people would. And I was just very upfront with my friend Jen. I said, I'm sorry, but you know, it's shocking, but I'm not surprised. You know, she was trying to say he had a perfect life and why would someone do that? And I said, I didn't see a perfect life. I saw someone that was running away from his demons and his addictions. Right. And that's just and she was like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you right now. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. You know, and she hung up. And it was just like these three things, you know, and it was just so strange because for the most part, my life I don't have a lot that disturbs me, really. You know, right. I don't.
Why are you so standoffish, Heno? Why are you causing all this drama?
Exactly. And usually if I do put my foot in it, I usually put it in good.
Yeah,
it's usually from something like major. You know, like you get into a dispute or a little argument or something. Or, you know, I've shared plenty of times on this show where I just put my foot in my mouth at work. You know, I shared recently about this where like, don't say anything. And here Heno says everything.
Right.
You know? And this time, you know, I thought back on it and I was like, you know, should I have said that? She was obviously needed someone to talk to. And yeah, I guess I could have, just kept my mouth shut, but I think a lot of it was, I've seen so many things attributed to him because of his past addictions as he's some sort of a poster boy for someone that can get out of rehab and still smoke and drink and not be considered an addict. And I was just like, not in my experience.
Yeah.
And I've seen doctors write this stuff up. There's a blog. It's called Anthony Bourdain's like sobriety report card or something like that. And I found this a long time ago, and then he'd written a follow up, and there's a lot of people that love to rip on 12-step programs.
Yeah.
And they're typically, and they're not like they're not scientists, they're doctors, they're people that run rehabs themselves, and they bring up a lot of good points. I will acknowledge all the points they bring up, but I think they miss the mark. And this is one of those ones where, again, that somebody just is trying to go out of their way to say that someone who's an addict doesn't have to stop everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel I have to.
Right. And that's typically not how it goes. Yeah. And I mean, I'm no addict, but listening to, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, listening to Jason Mewes talk about how, like, after he got off of heroin, how, like when he would hurt, like he wouldn't even take, like, Tylenol or any sort of a painkiller kind of a thing because, next thing you know, he's taking 10 of them or he's taking, like the addictive part of him just would not let him do it. So he had to stay away from that stuff as much as possible,
But then there's people, that I think I fall into the category of potential alcoholic, I think is really where it would lie, because I have alcoholism in my family. And for a time of in my life, I was an extremely abusive drinker, but I was able to step away from it to an extent and grow out of it in my life. And I'm able to drink on occasion and keep it within the parameters of what I feel is acceptable for my lifestyle. So, was there potential for me to be a full-blown alcoholic and have to give up completely alcohol? Absolutely. I at one point had friends wanting to talk to me about and have a sit down about my drinking and things choices I was making in my life. So I really feel I came very closely brushed with the alcoholism, but so I can see there are people like me out there, and I think a lot of people kind of fall into that category, that the opportunity to become an alcoholic or to have that alcoholism in your life was there. But whatever caused the verge to go, the road that didn't lead down alcoholism, I don't know,
Oh, I see it. And I see it all the time with especially younger people who had to go, they went to rehabs when they were younger and they stayed sober for many, 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 many years. And they got older and they found that they could drink normally and it didn't affect their lives in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I wish I could do that. I can't, but I would never, if somebody said, you know what, I think like maybe my problems were due to my age and I think I'm going to try drinking again. I'm just like, I'd be like, go for it. Mm-hmm. I was never, It even says in 12-step programs, it is said, if you're not sure, go out and do some experimenting.
Yeah.
Nobody in 12-step programs has ever said, no, don't. Yeah. No, it actually encourages. It says, if you need that guarantee, that little, just make sure. Mm-hmm. And so that's why, I think what happened is I don't have any. I loved Anthony Bourdain's show. I watched many times where he went into a location and everything that he did was, it was awesome. And I learned stuff and I thought it was great. But what I heard last night from my friend was what a perfect life. And I just once again said, we have no idea. Yeah. We have no idea. We can't say that. Mm-hmm. And I, for one, brought my own personal experience in it. And maybe I shouldn't have expressed it last night, but I did, but I still believe it. And I will say it now. It's like that man was an addict still.
Yeah.
100%. And a lot of people and we've talked about on the show a lot, and, we're going to be talking about suicide tonight, everybody. A lot of people that have the means don't have a reason to change their lives because they have money. They have, they can go on. They don't have a bottom.
Yeah.
They never hit it. And I don't know him either. I'm giving just my gut reaction, which is no different than anybody else's.
Yeah.
It is no different. But it's based on my experience. I honestly did not want to be him.
Yeah.
And that's one of my things. When I'm around sober people, when I meet people, the reason that I got sober is because I got around a bunch of people who were dealing with their demons their issues, their isms, everything about them. They were looking for solutions to these common problems we have, and I wanted what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that man and I said, I don't want what you have. It doesn't look appealing to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I expressed that last night, and I upset a friend of mine. And I think that's, I guess in the end, there's an amends there to be made. I made a choice, and, I would have rather have been a good listener, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but it would have been hard.
I guess going down your checklist of, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said now? It's like, well, does it?
Probably didn't, but here's the thing.
But you're not.
I don't think I could have sat very long and listened to some, because what I already saw on the Facebook feed, all these accolades, and I'm just like, oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Because I did not idolize him. I just didn't.
Yeah. And I told you before we recorded and stuff, it's like, I never looked at, I envied his life, but not in the, I envied the ability to go to various places, try all these things, get into these cultures, all that stuff is what I envied. I didn't envy, listen, I'd probably drink if I went to different places too, but, it wasn't about those kind of things. It was more just, it's not just him. I envy other, the other chefs and stuff that do those kind of shows where they just get to go around and eat really good food and have great conversations. That seems like a really awesome, thing to do. But you're right. It's like to look at someone like that and go, oh, they have the perfect life. It's like, no, we don't know. We all we all only see what someone puts out there.
What's presented. Yep. What's presented to us. And yeah. And just to kind of finish up my end of the week look at this is, in a way, I'm glad I just said something up front, because I really said, I don't like him. And she said, well, that doesn't matter. And I said, well, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Cause you didn't ask me why I don't like him. And I said, because I saw, and someone struggling just to me. And so I'm glad because otherwise it would have eventually come out anyway. Mm-hmm. And this is a conversation I want to have here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like I can just, I can talk through ideas and I mean, you guys know me where I'm coming from when I say this.
Yeah.
And it's not me being mean or anything like that, because I so support somebody. I want someone like that to find the help that they did. But I also, it's hard for me it's hard for me to see the self-centered arrogance that keeps people from asking for help. And Val Kilmer got a ton of guff this week for expressing similar things. And he knew Anthony Bourdain very well.
Now,
and he put out this thing.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Oh, he put up he kind of wrote this monologue to Anthony, and it had talked a lot about selfishness, and he got a lot of negative responses talking about, it's not selfishness. It was, you don't know the depths of his depression, blah, 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 this kind of stuff like that. Mm. But he was coming out, honestly, from a source of love. He was angry. He was angry that his friend was gone.
Yeah.
And he was just expressing it. And I think I'm also like, this is my place that I can express it in a safe way.
Yeah, because when people
get your response.
Do take their own lives, that is a very typical response for people to have, is how selfish it was and different stuff. And we've covered that before. If anyone listening hasn't listened before, go back and listen to, I'll pull it up here real quick, episode 105, which is the episode we did right after Chris Cornell killed himself or died. Let's go that way because of the weirdness that was kind of part of that. Yeah. But we talked about a lot of that kind of stuff, like the selfishness and whatnot. And it's so tough because we don't know what the depths of his depression were. We don't even know that it was depression that led him to do it.
Right.
People a lot of times want to immediately jump to that. And I'm pretty sure it was pretty well known. I think that he, had issues. But if nothing else, like you said, Henno, it's like he had demons from the past and stuff that maybe weren't exorcised completely or definitely weren't. And, to just jump right to depression, I understand it. And again, I want people to talk about these things. You know, I want people to have dialogues about depression, about suicide, about these different things. But it's like, you know, no, it bugs me a little bit that the first thing most people want to do is go selfish and not go like, why? You know, like it always feels like they ask the wrong question first, but I understand we'll never know why, you know, because nobody was there. He didn't leave a note that we're aware of at this point. But I hate that, you know, and like I said, with you said about Val Kilmer, I get, because that is what we all go through when someone around us dies like that. You know, it's like, why? Did I miss something?
Stages of grief.
Yeah. And
anger, denial. I mean,
yeah.
They're all in there.
Well, and I've seen a couple things that were like, oh, he's got a daughter and he was super, you know, selfish and all this. And it's like, look, if it was depression, your brain doesn't work that way. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
You can't see that, you know, that's not enough. And I know it's hard for people to fathom because when their kid is born, it's like, this is my world. And that's great. That's how it should be. But when you are overtaken by something like depression or some sort of mental illness, you lose that ability. You know, that there's a lot of people that go, no, you know, and who knows?
Alcohol's the same way. People drink themselves to death in the face of all sorts of reasons not to.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing I think ultimately that just makes me so mad is the fact that we had this report from the CDC last week talking about the increase in suicide rates, and nobody would talk about it if it weren't for the fact that we had 2 celebrities that killed themselves last week. And it just makes me angry. It makes me so angry because in that report talks about our military veterans who have a disproportionate amount of suicide, and they're from our recent wars. They're not old wars. They're ones that our politicians have sent people off to go fight, where they are now coming home and they're struggling. The addictions, the fact that we have freaking guns everywhere and that's how people kill themselves. The fact that men are disproportionately the ones that aren't getting any help. The 50% of the people that commit suicide had no diagnosis of mental illness whatsoever, and that there's a stigma against it, and it's worse in small towns. I mean, I'm literally just summarizing what is in there.
And it's interesting because the part about mental health, like half the people not being diagnosed, you know, it doesn't mean they didn't have something. It just means they hadn't been diagnosed or shown previous whatever.
They never see anybody.
Right. But at the same time, it's like that proves that it's like when someone kills themselves, we shouldn't just automatically assume that they're mentally ill.
No, it's true. Yeah.
You know?
Well,
we don't know.
Yeah. That's what brought me, because you guys were talking about selfishness. Let's flip the script a little bit there and take a look at it from another perspective. How selfish is it for us to want our loved one to live in that much pain just to be there for us?
Well, the thing is, like, people don't look at it that way because in their head they go, well, I want them to get help. But it's like,
right.
But you didn't know, so and
they didn't know and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, but it's that we keep talking about that selfishness, and that's why I just wanted to throw that out there just to kind of help people look at things maybe from a little bit of a different angle of perspective. There is that, you know, if somebody has, you know, cancer or a very bad disease, and eventually may lead to their death or will lead to their death, and they're in a ton of pain. It's so difficult, and I'm kind of touching on assisted suicide there, just a touch, you know, but it's
rightfully so.
You know what I mean? It's like, where is it okay for someone to decide for themselves how much is too much pain?
Yeah.
And is it really them being selfish to be self-preserving? And, you know, so and I'm not trying to open up the whole Pandora's box here, because I know we can get into quite a few different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation to have, but it is very much related, of course. So yeah,
but I think it's the ultimate. For me, it's the part that's important about this is our policies as a country and what we talk about so much in the media, what we want to throw out there, but we're not willing to do any work for it. We're not willing to put any money towards it. We're not willing to do, like, they don't know why we've got a 25% increase since 1999 in suicide rates. Yeah. They don't know. You've got economic factors. We had a downturn. We've had people lose jobs. You can look at it on a state by state basis. Some locations, it's up as much as 50%.
Yeah.
Only Nevada had a decrease. That was only one state.
And that report points out, or the article points out, that even though it was a 1% decrease, their number is still really high.
It's still high.
Yeah.
Yes. That they already have a high number. And I look at it and I just go, between this and the fact that we don't give someone a choice that they're in too much pain, and that we have a way that they would like to go out with die with dignity, and it's certain policies that that is to me what's important, to give people the opportunities that they can get help without stigma, without fear of costs. When Sharon was having anxiety attacks, and she was just feeling anxiety. And it was like, unfortunately, money and health insurance ended up being a factor in whether she was going to go get some help in December or wait until January. And that's BS.
Yeah,
I think that is just crap.
Yep.
And luckily, our local counseling center brought her in. She had a session. She never paid for it. They never billed her for it.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Right.
Because those are the people that are, and that's why the people that work there are willing to call, if somebody calls and they say that they're having, that they're having thoughts of killing themselves or whatever like that, there will be a counselor someone will be calling them, a professional at all hours of the night, and we'll talk to them all night long. This is what I love about my community. They will bring you in. They will do what they can for you. They will try to help you. They will do anything because the lives are more important. And the fact that we, the people, because I don't like to use the term government because it's just objectification. It's us. It's we. Don't put a priority on this.
Right.
Burns me.
Well, it
just does.
Something that's really interesting. I was kind of going to go very similar way that you did, which is interesting because it's like people don't want to talk about suicide. It's not something most people have conversations about, Generally, if you start talking about it, I remember in the past bringing it up to somebody that I, had thoughts. I had gone through the plans. I had written down notes. I'd done a lot of the red flag stuff and basically just getting like, well, yeah, but you didn't. So I don't, let's not talk about it. And it's like, I'm sitting here telling you that I have, let's say, 3 of the top 5 flags of I'm going to kill myself.
Yep.
And you're like, so first of all, there's that, which that needs to change, like you said, and it doesn't need to just be when a celebrity dies this way. We need to keep talking about this. Parents need to talk to their kids about bullying because that's a huge reason that the rate in teens is ballooning like crazy. And I'll bet that's a big part of it, is the cyberbullying and different stuff. It's like parents need to get into these things. And I know not every kid's going to reveal everything to every parent, but we got to try. We've got to talk to each other. If somebody has issues with depression or different stuff like this, or they've gone through a recent hardship, a breakup, job loss, whatever it is, any sort of a hardship, we need to make sure as friends and family that we're contacting these people, making sure they're okay, that they're not thinking of these things. And if they are, let's try to get them help. But this article coming out about the huge number in percentage increase in suicide, what it made me do was, as I was reading this thing, I'm doing the same thing you did, which is like, this is a policy problem. This is a policy problem. This is a whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, what it made me do, because we started with the conversation of suicide, is when we start looking at the economic factors and all these other things in here, I start going, wow, there's there's all these other holes we also need to plug because, first of all, they suck. And second of all, if we plug those holes, potentially we can get this number down. Mm-hmm. You know, because like you said, I mean, you know, it used to be very common that guys would kill themselves because they couldn't provide for their family. You know, rather than try to find help or whatever. That wasn't the manly thing to do, you know, so you kill yourself. And, you know, and I'm sure there's still an element of that to this day. You know, I'm sure there's still plenty, you know, some guys that have done that. And obviously the opioid problem is a huge part of this, I'm sure. It's got to be a big part of it. But that's still suicide, no matter how you want to look at it. You know, whether it's intentional or not, those things are going to kill people. You know, I've lost a niece and a nephew to it. So I full on have seen it right in front of us. And, you know, like the state that me and Jen are in, Michigan, is in the 31% to 40.6% increase area. The state Heno's in is 43.2 to 57%. Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. I saw one analysis of this report, and they talked about the bullying. And they said actually when they look at it, those actually numbers have not gone up in anywhere near proportionately, right? Okay. And the other part of it is like, so what's one of the things people love to talk about? Oh, religion. Okay. Guess this state, we have so much freaking religion in Idaho. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unbelievable. But you know what we also have? I know we're still in the top 10 for minimum wage jobs. Mm-hmm. And we don't have expanded Medicare. Mm-hmm. And we don't, and if you've got a drug or an alcohol problem, if you can't afford rehab, too bad.
Right.
You can go check yourself into the emergency room, but then you're getting kicked out as soon as that's done. And there's nowhere to go. Yeah. There's no programs for this stuff. So, and I'm not trying to ascribe, what I'm trying to bring up is that they literally do not know why this is happening. Yeah. They don't yet. Mm-hmm. They don't know why we have this high rate. Yeah. But one thing I did read about, which was really interesting, is there was a discussion of how treatment is done. And it starts with one of the things that you talked about, Brian, just now, which was this idea that you've made a plan. That that they've been trying this therapy, when somebody comes in and they said and the therapist is, you know, it starts typically with a phone call to one of the crisis hotlines or the suicide prevention hotlines, and they get the person on the phone, and they ask them, you know, have you planned it? Blah blah blah, this and that, da da da. Okay, now let's get you in. You know, they managed to get them to not kill themselves right then and there, and they bring them in and they start looking at them like, how do you see yourself dying? Mm-hmm. And they start talking about these things like, and getting them to think of, you know, it's not next week. It's, I see myself, you know, old and blah, 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 blah. Mm. Okay. Or if they start saying, well, you know, they don't see themselves living long at all. Mm-hmm. All right. Next question. Do you have guns in the house? Yep. Would you be willing to get rid of those? Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this is not us in any way rallying against, like, you know, gun stuffs. It's just simply the fact the way most people kill themselves is via firearm. So, you know. It
goes guns, hanging, poison. Mm-hmm. In the poison aspect, what was it? A third of the people that killed themselves from poison had opioids in their system. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they were already addicts, you know, who killed themselves. But yeah. It's just a simple fact. So what's the first thing they do? Let's get the first easy way out. Right. Are you willing to have guns? Get the guns out of the house. And then as a result of this, they start seeing you start getting some statistics. This is the way you do studies. This is how you know, is this effective? Mm-hmm. Can we reduce the suicide rate by simply asking people to be willing to eliminate the possibilities that they might do this? Because one of the things it talked about is for most men, relationships. Mm-hmm. The men that commit suicide, some relationship issue. Yeah. Or a job.
Yeah. Not even a mental health issue, but just one of those things. Yep.
Because there's a difference between depression and sadness and loneliness. Sadness and loneliness are symptoms of depression. Mm-hmm. But you can be just really sad and really lonely and not actually be depressed.
Depression doesn't always have to be
clinical depression.
Yeah, I was going to say depression doesn't always have to be clinical. You know, you can be in a state of depression for, you know, X amount of time and stuff. And that's why, but going to what you said, Heno, that's why years ago when my dad died, I inherited, you know, a couple of guns. And when like one guy my mom was with, died, he had a handgun and she asked me if I wanted it. And I was like, no, I don't want a gun in my vicinity. Not that I would probably ever use it. I don't want it accessible to where some night, if I make a bad decision, it's over. You know, like if it isn't there, it can't happen that way. Sure, there's pills and other stuff, but it can't happen via firearm. You know, that's one less way it's accessible to me. And like you were saying, that's a huge thing. You know, if you have a bunch of different ways you can, you know, and again, I know we all have a variety of pills in our medicine cabinets or prescriptions we're on that we could OD on or whatever. You know, there's all sorts of ways to do things, but it's, it really is the idea of trying to remove that accessibility, because that's one of, what is it? They brought up in that article that there were like 3 A's about it, and it was accessibility, and I can't remember the other two. But anyway, accessibility, you know, is one of the first ones there. So yeah, there we go. The 3 A's are availability, accessibility, and acceptability of care. Yep. You know, and that's not for, like guns though. That's for like, you know, healthcare. Yeah. Which is interesting to me a little bit about Michigan being in that range, because Michigan has, extended Medicaid. And Michigan has they have some programs for mental health. Now, pretty much every state is just about lacking in mental health funding, but, because like you said earlier, Heno, it's not prioritized. Same with like the veteran part of this. That's another issue that clearly we need to shore up. Like, why are veterans killing themselves at this alarming rate? What can be done there? You know, like I think each one of these little things that they think might be a cause, it's like each one of those need to be approached and worked on, you know, because even if they aren't the cause of this overall increase, it's still in the better good. You know, we don't, that's it. You know? Yep.
There's nothing to be lost. And I hate to say it, we're going to have to throw some freaking money at the stuff and some resources. And you're going to have to, you know, get local people involved with this. I mean, I can see why Michigan has a high rate. If you look at how the economic downturn hit, the opioid crisis, and how that's hit the state. You know, once again, rural, which they said there was a greater chance for suicide in rural communities because there's greater stigma, because they're smaller communities, and it's a lot harder to hide the fact that you're seeking, you know, treatment or therapies or blah, 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 or you're afraid that somebody's going to find out because, like we've talked about a million times, people have this impression that asking for help is a weakness and not a strength. Right. And these are things that somehow they need to be conveyed. And then another one I'm going to throw out there that has nothing to do with these articles, but it's something that you know, I learned about recently and have brought up, is that some people who are depressed and suddenly start getting their depression treated now have the energy to commit suicide. I
was just reading about that the other day, actually. Yeah.
And whereas this is anecdotal, but I know, you know, people that are therapists that have talked about this before too, is that they had a loved one that cried wolf over and over and over again because they were honestly in too deep of a depression to actually do anything about it, but they needed they needed the help. And then all of a sudden when they started to get treatment, it just happened. Yeah. There was no phone call. Right. Because they suddenly had the energy and they were finally clear enough in their head that they could actually make a plan. Yeah. The idea that someone could be too depressed to actually make a plan and follow through with it. Now, we don't know about that. Yeah. I want to know about that. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that I want to see studied, and no pharmaceutical company is going to pay for this. Nope. No. it has to be we the people that have to do this for our best interest for ourselves, because we want to help ourselves for the greater good. And I'm tired of it being just, okay, we have awareness right now because we had 2 celebrities.
Yeah.
People are, what's the number in Montana, which is pretty high? 29 people for every 100,000 killed themselves.
Right. And the thing is, like, yeah, cause that's the, it's 29% or whatever, but it's like when you think about that number in most other states, the number per 100,000 is not that high. It's
exactly.
And people think Montana and they think like sparse, it's like, it's got a lot of people, but they're way spread out. And it's like, but a lot of suicides are happening there. And it's, so it's, these are the things I'm sure each state is going to be looking at these numbers going, whoa, maybe some of it's not a surprise, but but the problem is, like you said, Heno, it's, we need policy change and we need money thrown at this, because with no money, nothing's going to happen. We can do all the awareness walks we want to do. We can do all this kind of stuff. We can do podcasts like this, but in the end, we have to care as people. Like you said, we the people have to care. We have to prioritize it. And we then have to enact our prioritization or at least express it to our politicians, whether it comes in the form of saying, hey, this is how I feel. And if they disagree, vote them out or whatever it is, but we can't just stand by, because we can't have this number keep going up. This is a real problem.
Yeah. And this also ties into, addiction, and it goes into alcoholism, and it goes into, mental health and getting people the opportunity to get the help that they need.
Yeah.
There's so many, it just bums me out that somebody who wants help can't get it.
Yes.
That bums me out more than the person that has all the money in the world who decided that it wasn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a bit of I might sound a little callous, but here's the fact of the matter. And you brought this up, Jen. It's still a choice.
Yeah.
If somebody has gotten to that point where they just can't take it anymore, it's their choice.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. I've had
sad, but I respect that. And
exactly.
It's that freedom. It's the same thing of freedom with speech. It's the freedom of choice, and it sucks and it hurts. And by no means do I want to say, am I trying to say that people shouldn't get help? Because you should always get help. Every life's worth saving in my book. I want everyone out there to get help. But if you get to that point where you make that decision, I believe that it's your right to make that decision.
Yeah.
And it sucks, and it's sad for all of us.
Yep.
But, it's your right. It's your choice.
Yeah.
And I've had several in my recovery community that have made that choice. Mm-hmm. And every single time it was shocking, but it wasn't surprising.
Right.
Because we knew what they'd been fighting demons their whole life. And the reason that they got into recovery is because they self-medicated for years and years and years and years.
Yep.
They were on their own destructive path. And then all of a sudden they take the drugs away. Well, it's like, oh, wow, I actually have a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them got help, and some of them just couldn't be helped.
Yeah.
They really couldn't be. And at some point they finally just made that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
And it was very sad, but all of us understood because we knew that this was not an easy life for them.
Right. And, I was talking with a friend the other night, and she pointed out something I had heard before, but I haven't heard it recently, but it's so true, which is, from the mental health part of this whole conversation, it's like, with depression, you have to fight and win every fight, and depression only has to win one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's where, like you were saying, Heno, but if you go, wow, I want to get help, but you can't get help, then it's okay, well, now what? you know, and
that's
a problem.
You're right. That's where we need to focus our efforts and in really making sure that that's all we can do is making sure the opportunity for help is out there.
Yeah,
exactly.
And, you know, and everyone understands what the options are.
Yeah, that actually right there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We've talked about it a lot on this show, which is my number one favorite word in the world, it's choice. You know, we always have a choice. And making sure that everybody can see their choices so they can make the best decision for themselves is paramount in making, you know, in what to decide, how to decide. Because if you don't see the choices that you have in front of you, how are you possibly going to make an educated decision?
Yeah.
So let's make sure that people see the choices they have in front of them and know about the choices they have in front of them. Then they can make the best educated decision for themselves.
And that's actually exactly what I was going to say, because there's a lot of people who don't realize that there are a lot of programs out there to help people. You know, I mean, honestly, like in Michigan was a good example, actually, because when I applied for Medicaid, I was denied. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford, you know, psychiatrists and psychologists and all, like I can't afford these things. And a woman at the doctor's office was like, oh, have you heard of, I believe it was called, I don't know if it still is, but it was called like, Bridges, the Bridges program. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a bridge between what you have and what you need, essentially. And I was like, no. And she goes, okay, and she wrote down, you know, she's like, go to this website and, you know, apply. She's like, there's a good chance. She's like, this is the extended Medicaid, basically. And I qualified for that. If otherwise, like if she hadn't been there that day, who knows? Maybe nobody would have said anything to me. Maybe I would have just walked out of there not knowing anything else was available. Maybe at this point I wouldn't be still getting health care. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's all it took was just that. But like I said, if by chance she wasn't there and someone else was working the counter and maybe they just don't know it. You know, it's that easy, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be, you know, people should know that there's programs out there. You know, sometimes you got to fill out a lot of paperwork, and I know it's exhausting, but you know, sometimes that's what you got to do. Sometimes you can do them online. Sometimes you could have like someone do them for you. But there are a lot of things out there. And again, as we've said countless times on here, we know it's so hard to reach out. You know, it's a really hard step. But if you're in a place that you can reach out, there is a lot of options out there. And we've mentioned on here before too, NAMI.org, that's essentially a big part of what they do, is they try to help people find, healthcare, you know, mental health, help for whatever they can afford, basically, you know, and, you know, so those kind of things that are out there, they're existing. People are out there trying. Unfortunately, it's not enough, but at least it's a start, you know. One of the things that concerned me with this report too was, like, did you catch that part, Heno, that it said that, you know, suicide's now one of the top 10 killers?
Yes.
And it's one of only 3 on that list that are on the rise.
Yes.
You know, that's and the numbers for women are going up. You know, men still tend to do it more than women, but the number for women is going up. And, you know, it's like, there's just so much in this report that it's like one article you just read. It's just like, here's the things that are reported. And you're just like, I can see so many things we need to work on. Like this just points out that it's like, we're just letting people fall through, just letting it happen. And that, you know, like I said, it needs to be a priority, and we, you know, people need to stop sweeping this stuff under the rug. Not just the suicide talk, but definitely suicide talk. You know, like I said, parents talking with kids, talk to your friends that have had recent struggles, talk to anybody, you know, people that have mental health. Just do what you can as a person and stuff. But, yeah.
So I'm going to read something by Anne Schuchat. It's Schuchat. She's an MD and she's a principal deputy director of the CDC. And she cited an Air Force program this is what she talked about on Thursday when this report came out. They have 11 policy and educational initiatives in place. Among other measures, it boosts social support and shifts the culture away from suicide as an individual concern to a community concern. As a result, suicides fell by 33% in the Air Force. Among the crucial measures are programs that promote safe storage of medications and firearms for people who are more likely to commit suicide. Communities also need to encourage connectivity so people are less likely to feel alone or isolated. People need to learn what things make suicide more likely. These include previous attempts, a recent stressful event, a history of mental illness or substance abuse, easy access to firearms, and then reaching out to anyone at risk or who talks about suicide is crucial. And I just... you brought up the Medicaid loophole. In Idaho, we had to create a voter initiative. Literally our legislature refuses to extend it. The governor's refusing to extend it. We had to do a voter initiative. Mm-hmm. It will affect 65,000 people who could potentially get health insurance now and mental health and these types of things. And literally one of our governor candidates campaigned on getting rid of it no matter what the voters did. Even if we voted it in, his plan was going to do it. He happens to be in Washington right now. Mm-hmm. His name is Ralph Labrador. He's a representative that was running for the governor. Mm-hmm. And he literally said that. And I was like, I don't understand this. To me, it just sounds cruel.
I'm sure you saw, what was it, last week or this past Tuesday, whatever, with the elections and whatnot. Around that same time, it came out that, Maine's governor, even though it had been voted to expand Medicaid, he basically said he would not do it. And it got challenged to their Supreme Court, and the court ruled he has to enact it.
Yeah. And he still will probably try not to.
Right, and he'll drag his feet and all that kind of stuff, yeah. But it's And
it goes against this idea of community and the fact that when we have, and this is something that I personally believe, yes, I have an emotional connection to these topics. However, when you have an Air Force program that has reduced suicide by 33%, I want to implement that program.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Because
whatever they were doing, I want to put it in because those are numbers. Those are traceable numbers. There is a reason why certain political types do not want to give the CDC the power to study things.
Yeah.
Because then we'll have the facts and the figures, and I just find that disgusting any times that we would knowingly refuse to get information that could help.
Yeah, that's the thing to me is it's what it ends up doing is it doesn't, these studies that could help, won't get the funding. And in essence, what they've done by saying we're not going to give you this ability is we're not going to give you the ability to potentially help people. That is a strong, strong statement. And anyone who makes that statement, I don't care if they have an R, a D, or an I next to their name, is not someone that I want in office. Because they're not looking out for the people. And like I said, I'm this isn't it's not a Republican Democrat. It's not, because there's a load of garbage in a bunch of the states. The state I live in is going through, the Senate just voted to repeal extended Medicare. Or Medicaid. Or not repeal it, I'm sorry, to require...
a work requirement?
Yeah, a work requirement. I can't remember how many hours it is now. And Louisiana just passed one. These are problems. Making it harder for people to get help is not the answer to... Even if people are abusing programs, find ways to close loopholes. Don't make it harder and harder and harder, because you defeat the purpose of social programs every time you add another rule that you have to or another hoop to jump through. you know, and listen, I mean, it's no secret. I'm all for social programs to an extent because they've helped this country through a lot of awful things. And when it comes to stuff like mental health and healthcare in general, the government pays for most of the healthcare in this country anyway. So why wouldn't we try to get everybody healthcare if that's the case? You know, because like me, I have the ability to go to the doctor right now. So do you know what I do? I go to the doctor, right? Exactly. I go to the dentist. I'm getting my teeth cleanings. These are all things that can, if I don't, lead to me down the road needing to have whatever happen, and then I have higher medical bills. You know, it's like this is why people don't seek help. You know?
Yeah.
It's a problem. Even if you don't agree with the, like, healthcare for all kind of thing, it's still nobody should have to make the choice in this country between eating or their prescriptions or getting mental health or any sort of medical help and getting something for their kids, or, you know what I mean? It's like, this is just ridiculous. And I think we need to hit that tipping point real soon.
Well, a young man just died from not having his insulin because he couldn't afford his insulin to be taken on the schedule that his doctor prescribed. So he was doing half doses.
Right.
He was spreading it out. Which is
really common, especially for senior citizens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this was actually a younger man, and he was having financial issues. So he was spreading it out, and he spread it too thin and didn't have enough insulin in his system and ended up dying.
Yeah.
So it is a real problem. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just one of many, many, many stories I'm sure that are out there. But you're right. It is a real problem.
And again, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some people that if they had access to things still wouldn't go get help. You know,
Absolutely.
We all know that person who just refuses to go to the doctor for anything unless their arm is torn off, you know?
And that's the personal choice aspect of it that we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm. But like Henno said, that, you know, there are a lot of people who would like to get help that just can't, you know?
Mm-hmm. We got to make sure that everybody knows their options and what's going on and what they can do to get help.
Yep.
So with that being said, let's go through some of those options. So instead of giving our info first, Brian, why don't you tell them about some of the links in NAMI and stuff like that you have that you usually go through?
Yeah, I was actually I'm gonna post links from from the previous episode we did on suicide. There are ones like suicide behavioral warning signs, which is from mentalhealth.gov, which is a place you can go and read about mental health. Wow, I feel like there was more here that I'm not seeing now. Anyway, like we said, you know, NAMI.org is one, cause they try to help people find mental health, help. So that's a really good place to start. There's usually local chapters of that too. Excuse me. There's the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, which can be found at sprc.org. Again, you know, if you want to look for info on, you know, trying to help prevent like a friend's suicide or something, or, you know, like someone you know from committing suicide. Let me say that. The 24-hour suicide crisis support number is 1-800-273-8255. And they can also be found at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. There's a crisis text line. Whoops, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that also is 273-TALK.
Yes, you're right. Good point.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, way easier. Yeah. The crisis text line can be found at crisistextline.org. Or if you type or text to 741-741, I know they've got a bunch of different keywords you can use. You know, I don't know what all they are. I'm sure they're on their website, but, you know, I would assume if you probably text something like help or I think one was Hope that I saw the other day. I've seen various ones. But that exists, like, if you don't want to talk to someone on the phone, but you're more comfortable, texting. Yeah, I think that's pretty much, those are the ones that I've got pretty much right here, so.
Okay. And if you need someone to talk to or a listening ear, you can always reach out to us, and we'd be happy to talk with you. You can reach me through Twitter at Jen's. Yep.
Really quick, sorry. One more thing about that that suicide crisis number that I gave, the very first one. I believe it. I think it's that one. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. There's one of them, but anyway, it's basically a crisis line, to where they will talk to you if you're having any sort of a crisis. It doesn't have to be just suicide. It could be something mental health related, like you're having a panic attack or whatever. Somebody will talk with you and try to help walk you through your crisis.
That's very good to know. But yeah, you can reach me at Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach me on Facebook. And on Facebook, I'm Genevieve McDaniel Chopek. This is a very long name, so you can usually find me easier through our Facebook page, which Brian will tell you about. And you, Heno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno. Find me on Facebook, Heno Heider. You can get a hold of me and tell me why I am completely full of it. But before you do, why don't you let Brian know why you think he shouldn't have health insurance?
Sorry for going political on this one, folks.
Well, this is what changed my mind was, you put a face to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Brian gets to go to see a therapist because of expanded Medicaid. Tell me why he doesn't deserve it.
And if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you can see a huge difference.
And it worked. It works.
So, and that's the thing. We all know somebody who is probably affected in a similar fashion. Whether it's obviously we all know someone with a mental illness. Everybody pretty much does. 'Cause 1 in 4 people have it? So we all probably know somebody. If you don't, you're a rarity, but, or a very, very much a recluse. So it's like, think about those people when you think about it, think about the people what if they couldn't get the help that is giving them the ability to live their life, that kind of stuff. Really quick, from the crisis text line, which is 741-741. If you text that on their website, they have home as the word to text to them. So I think I was mistaken when I thought it was hope. I think it was home, and I'm just silly. So, they also on their site, since I'm scrolling on here, they have a newsletter on their website. They have a blog. One of the things on there is helping a friend in crisis via text. So, even if you're not a person who may need that site or whatever for yourself, maybe there's still good information potentially to find on there too. And yeah. Now this is the part where I tell all my links, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
How can they reach you, Brian?
You can find the show on Twitter also at The Crazy Life Pod. You can find me at Stunami. You can find us on Facebook, where under the files section, we have all of these numbers and websites at facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. We are part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. Please go check out other podcasts on there. Did you give our email and website, Jen?
I didn't. Yep. Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
You go for it.
Okay. The website is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. Our email is thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. If you're using Apple Podcasts, please rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. That would greatly help us out. Or tell friends about the show. This show, I think we bring a lot of things that a lot of people, would want to hear about. So please share us with your friends. Share our Twitter posts or our Facebook posts or whatever. If you're using Stitcher or Spotify or another podcast app, please use the like or share options if they have it, and we'd appreciate it. And I already put the disclaimer part at the front of the show. I recorded a thing.
Cool.
Yeah. But obviously this episode is real suicide heavy, but it's not just that people need help with. So reach out to somebody that you know. Like I said earlier, it's, you've seen a bunch probably over the last few days on your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever that says, check on your strong friend. And there's a lot to that. The ones that don't show people that they need help a lot of times are the ones that need it. But like I said, and anyone that's gone through a recent, whether it's a tragedy or a hardship or a relationship breakup or whatever, just, talk to them, make sure they're doing okay. Or just, reach out and tell people that you love them and appreciate them. 'Cause it'll, make their day, or, you just never know. You might save somebody's life.
That's right. So definitely reach out and, try to smile and try to make somebody else's day better. And by doing so, maybe you make yourself feel better too. Just a suggestion. Never know what happens. So with that, try to have a great week and talk to you later.